Hey, I wanted to share an experiment with you, and it's an experiment to answer two questions. One is what new UX patterns are possible thanks to LLMs that we couldn't do before? And the second is what might it look like for the Montessori method of teaching to be applied in software for adults? And so my answer to these two questions is what I call Whole Earth AI. You're looking at it. It's a project-based learning tool. You can see here some of my projects as well as some of the projects of my friends. And it can really take any kind of project. The more specific, the better. One I've been thinking about is I'd like to build an automated greenhouse for my rooftop in Brooklyn. We can be specific. And the first thing it's going to do is ask us maybe the most important question, which is why do we want to do this? What is our motivation? That's really important context. And the AI really needs context for useful output. So it's going to ask us some questions. We don't always know what the most important context is when we're learning. So in Whole Earth AI, the AI is prompting us as much as we are prompting it. And you'll also notice we have some multiple choice options here. That does a few things. One is it reduces cognitive overhead through something we call recognition over recall. But the other is that it actually spurs new possibilities in thinking about what we could consider. Like, I hadn't thought about pest detection and management. You know what? That actually would be cool. So it kind of widens the scope of awareness for possible goals in the project. I also have totally open-ended questions. And we also get to choose where we want to focus our attention from a learning perspective. So for me, sensor integration is important, automation, programming, energy efficiency, hydroponics, data monitoring. And then it's going to create like a super prompt for us. This is a prompt that I certainly couldn't have written on my own because I didn't know to think of those things. We can look at it, we can determine if it's a good prompt. We can also add more information if we want to. For example, I might say, I want the system to email me alerts. Hit next. Now, no two learners are alike. Even for the same project, subject matter is multidimensional. Some people understand certain parts and others don't. So it's important that the AI actually knows where we're at in our existing knowledge. So here's an assessment quiz. I don't know a lot about this, so we'll see how I do. So far, so good. But you'll notice that it's asking us more and more difficult questions, and it's getting a sense of what we know and what we don't know. See, I don't know that. All right, 3 to 5. I'm not quite a beginner. I'm also definitely not advanced. So it's going to give me an intermediate project guide, taking into account the areas where I knew things and where I didn't. Let's go ahead and generate the project guide. So this will take just a moment, not too long. We're using some of the top of the line models here, so they do need a moment to think. Okay, this is our command center for the project. Everything you're looking at was just generated on the fly, including the image. We have a chatbot that's introducing us to our project, getting us oriented. We have the phases of the project from orientation and system design all the way down to calibration, planting, and optimization. We have time estimates for each phase of the project in hours. We can also look at that sort of master prompt that we created. So if we want to change our project goal in any way at any time, all we do is edit this, hit update goal. Also, everything is default private, but it will be public if you want it to be. I'll show that in a moment. But first, I want to go look at the action plan because there's a part here I really like, which is project materials. So just like a chef might use the mise en place approach to have everything prepared and ready to go in the kitchen to be efficient and feel confident, we're doing the same thing for any sort of project. So we know what our budget is, we know what materials we need and what they'll cost. We can check these off as we acquire them, and then we'll be really ready to go for our project. And we also have more details of getting into the weeds of the project here. So let's go ahead and start with phase one. We'll see where it lands us. So this is phase one. And the first thing you'll see is that it's going to give us some lesson sources. This is content from across the web that's been vetted by several algorithms within the app itself to make sure that we're getting high quality sources. Trust is super important in AI content. And we're going to synthesize those sources for our actual lesson material. There's a few other little features. We can listen to it if we want. We have images alongside other forms of content, tables, other images. We've got certainly our sources being referenced, more images. If we go all the way down, you'll notice we have video as well. So that's being pulled from YouTube to bring in that information as well, make that really useful. You'll also see that these tasks are organized separately. Now, when I first made Whole Earth AI, I was asking one LLM to handle content for all of these tasks. That didn't work very well. It was just asking too much of a single prompt. So one of the other things I learned is that LLMs really like focus. When you can split things up and ask it to focus on as little as possible, you get better outcomes. The other thing that's really important here is that for a learner, any information can spur a question, and we want them to be able to dive deeper without having any friction in that process. So what this ends up looking like, at least for Whole Earth AI, is we can click on anything. Maybe we're curious about wind resistance. So we click that. We can ask our own question, or we have these ready-made questions there to go. And we could say, just tell me more about that. And immediately we get a deep dive within the lesson content. And importantly, we can do that recursively. So anchor points, use concrete paper blocks. Great. How do I do that? Easy. One button click away. Now we can dive into that. And we can keep doing this, and I get obsessed with doing that. It's a little bit fun. But for now, I'll set it aside. Let me show you the rest. We can check this off. Let's say we did that. Look, we just leveled up in a skill. So environmental analysis, because we completed that task, we're now a little bit more intermediate in environmental analysis. So it's great to have a sense of progress towards some of the goals that we expressed earlier as we move through our project guide. The other thing you'll notice is on the left. This is a task unlike other tasks, because this task is a decision. We need to choose the primary crop species that we optimize our system around. Now, if you had asked me that earlier, I wouldn't have known how to answer the question. But now we've learned a little bit. We have lesson content that helps us get a little bit more specific and consider what the impacts of those decisions might be. And when we choose one, in our case, let's say fruiting plants, that sounds nice, we can actually update our project guide on the basis of that decision. So now, since I submitted that choice, the entire rest of the project guide is going to be redesigned to take into account the fact that we want to optimize for fruiting plants. So it just modified 2 of our future lessons. Beyond that, we have the bottom a lesson quiz. So this is a quiz for specifically the content in this lesson. It works a lot like the quiz we took earlier. My answers actually go in to update the AI's model of what I know and don't know. And it's going to adjust future lessons on the basis of that. So if I'm struggling with some particular subject, it's going to make sure that we focus on that a little bit more. If I've really grasped something, it's going to set that aside. Now, one more thing. I told you I'd mention how it is public and private. So we can make our project guide public. Go ahead and confirm. And now it is public. Other people can see it. Now, if I go back to the home page, it's there. But let's say a friend of mine has a cool project that they're working on, and I want to do that too. So let's say, for example, this host a coffee pop-up by Neil. That sounds really fun. I'd love to do a coffee pop-up. You'll notice when we're looking at someone else's project, it's already made for us a little bit, but we can go and hit this fork project button. And that basically takes that project and brings it into our project space so that we can edit it ourselves. We can modify the curriculum structure, et cetera, et cetera. We can make it our own, just as if we were forking in some other thing like GitHub. And that is Whole Earth. Hope you like it. I hope it provides some inspiration for other explorations. And yeah, stay curious, keep learning. Cheers.